Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Arafat. I teach history on the textbook platform. So, in this session, let us discuss a topic of modern Indian history, that is the non cooperation. So, in this session, let us spend some time discussing about this very important movement launched by the Congress party under the leadership of Gandhiji. Specifically, let us discuss the reasons for the launch of the non-cooperation movement. Good point. So let us start and let us go ahead with our discussion. So basically, the Congress Party, under the leadership of Gandhiji, launched and carried out three mass movements in India. Congress Party, under the leadership of Gandhiji, launched and carried out three mass movements. Yeah, one is the non-cooperation movement, was between 1920 to 1924, and the second is what we call as the civil disobedience movement between 1930 to 1934, and third we have a movement called the Quit India movement between 1942. So 19 in the year 1942. So basically, the Congress Party launched and carried out three mass movements under the leadership of Gandhiji. These are the three movements. The first of these three movements happened to be the non-cooperation movement. Non-cooperation movement. So let us spend some time discussing about the non-cooperation movement. So the non-cooperation movement undoubtedly is the first mass movement, first nationwide mass movement that was launched and carried out by the Congress Party under the leadership of Gandhiji. This was the first nationwide mass movement launched and carried out by the Congress Party under the leadership of Gandhiji. So this movement was launched in the year 1920 and it was carried out till 1922. So in February 1922, Congress Party suspended this movement. The point. So reasons for the suspension of the non-cooperation movement we can discuss later. But in this class, let us spend some time discussing about uh, the reasons for the launch of the non-cooperation movement. So the point is, I just told you that this happens to be the first nationwide mass movement to be launched and carried out by the Congress Party. So this movement saw uh, large participation of people from different sections of the society. The point is, when this movement was launched by Congress Party in 1920, immediately large number of people from different parts of the country and cutting across the different sections of the society actively came forward and participated in this. That's the reason why we call the non-cooperation movement as first nationwide mass movement of India. The point. Even before the non-cooperation movement, Congress Party did carry out another movement called the Swadeshi movement. Before the launch of the non-cooperation movement is in 1905 itself, the Congress Party carried out another movement called Swadeshi movement, but it was not a mass movement in the true sense. The Swadeshi movement was not a mass movement in the true sense, whereas undoubtedly the non-cooperation movement is called as first mass movement because it's the participation of large number of people cutting across the different sections of the society. That's the point. So, why did the movement become such a mass movement? The question: why did the movement become such a mass movement? Point is, largely the movement became a mass movement because of the leadership provided by Gandhiji. Movement, the non-cooperation movement, became a mass movement largely due to the leadership provided by Gandhiji. So Gandhiji, by this time, emerged as the one of the tallest figures of the movement. Gandhiji was a lawyer by profession. So in 1893 itself, he traveled to South Africa to fight a case on behalf of his client. Basically, he had a client who Indian, but he's a client. The point is, uh, Gandhiji was a lawyer by profession, and therefore, in 1893, he traveled all the way to South Africa to fight a case on behalf of his client. So the point is, in in South Africa, there were numerous Indians. So basically, the British had taken Indians uh, to South Africa to work as indentured labor. So, in other words, uh, many Indians were taken by the British South Africa to work on a contract. So, from the mid of the 19th century itself, point is from 1850s itself, many Indians started going to South Africa, mostly to work as agricultural laborers. So by 1890, there was a considerable Indian population in South Africa. So by 1890, there were considerable number of Indians in South Africa, and these Indians were very much discriminated in South Africa. That is, the Indians living in South Africa were discriminated in various ways. So Gandhiji, who was in South Africa 1893, was disheartened to see Indians being discriminated so much in South Africa. So therefore, uh, Gandhiji stayed back in South Africa, carried out uh, protest against the British for the discrimination to which Indians were being subject. Let me repeat the point once again. I told you from the middle of 1903 itself, that is from 1850s itself, a large number of Indians uh, were taken to South Africa uh, and were made to work as agricultural laborers. And by 1890, there was a considerable Indian population in South Africa, but those Indians were not treated properly. They were discriminated. They were being subjected to racial discrimination in South Africa. So, meanwhile, in 1893, Gandhiji uh, got an opportunity to travel to South Africa, fight a case on behalf of a client. So Gandhiji was greatly disturbed to see uh, the discrimination to which the Indians were being to in South Africa. So therefore, Gandhiji stayed back in South Africa uh, to to fight against the racial discrimination. So Gandhiji ended up staying in South Africa for more than 20 years. So Gandhiji had no intention of settling down in South Africa. He went there, fight a case on behalf of his client, but things became such that Gandhiji was forced to uh, settle down in South Africa for over 20-year period. So Gandhiji returned back to India only in 1915. It is after 22 years of his stay in South Africa, Gandhiji finally returned back to India in the year 1915. So, Gandhiji, upon the advice of his political guru Gopalakrishna Gokhale, basically the political guru of Gandhiji was Gopalakrishna Gokhale. Upon the advice of his political guru, Gandhiji had spent 1 long year traveling different parts of India. The whole of 1916, Gandhiji kept traveling different parts of India to understand for himself the actual conditions. So basically, Gandhiji spent 1 long year traveling parts of India. This he did to have first-hand idea of the existing conditions in different parts of India. And it was only in 19 that Gandhiji launched his first protest movement in India called Champaran Satyagraha. Champaran Satyagraha. So it was only in 1917 that Gandhi finally launched his protest movement in India called Champaran Satyagraha. The point. So this Champaran Satyagraha, in short, it is a peasant movement. It is basically a peasant movement. This peasant movement launched by Gandhiji became a super hit program. Similarly, the following year in 1918, Gandhiji launched two more movements. One is the Kheda movement in 1918. And then in the same year, 1918, he launched another movement called Ahmedabad Mill Strike. So basically, this Kheda Satyagraha was also a peasant movement. This Ahmedabad Mill Strike happened to workers' factory workers. So basically, in 1917, Gandhiji launched Champaran Satyagraha. In 1918, Gandhiji launched and carried out Kheda Satyagraha, which is also another peasant movement. In the same year, 1918, he also launched a workers' movement called Ahmedabad Mill Strike. The point is, all these three movements led by Gandhiji became a runaway success, became very, very successful. So the point is, it was the success the success of these three movements built up the confidence of people in Gandhiji and his methods of the point is the success of Champaran, Kheda, and Ahmedabad mill strike built up the confidence of people in Gandhi and also in his methods. So it was in 1920 that Gandhiji gave a call for non-cooperation movement, and when Gandhiji launched this movement, by this time itself, by 1920 itself, Gandhiji is one of the prominent leaders of the national movement. And when Gandhiji launched the movement in 1920, that is non-cooperation movement, immediately large number of people cutting across the different sections of the society actively came forward, participated in the non-cooperation. The whole point which I'm trying to convey is I tried explaining why the non-cooperation movement ended up becoming the first mass movement to be carried out by the Congress Party. Largely, the credit for making the movement mass movement undoubtedly goes to Gandhiji. This was because the movements which he had earlier led in India, such as the Champaran, Kheda, and Ahmedabad mill strike, ended up becoming very successful. People started, people look up to Gandhi. People began to have faith in Gandhiji. Therefore, when he launched the non-cooperation movement, in fact, this non-cooperation launched by the Congress Party, but under the leadership of Gandhi. So, therefore, numbers came forward and actively participated in. So, let us now discuss the reasons for the launch of the non-cooperation movement. Why did why did the Congress Party and Gandhiji launch the non-cooperation? Let us understand why this happened. The first reason for the launch of non-cooperation movement is an act called the Rowlatt Act. The Rowlatt Act was passed in the year 19. This act is called Rowlatt Act because this act was passed on the recommendations of a committee headed by an officer called Sir Sidney Rowlatt. There was a committee which was headed by an British officer called Sir Sidney Rowlatt. So it is upon the recommendations of this committee, this act was passed. Hence, this act became popularly known as Rowlatt Act. But the actual name of this act is Anarchical and Revolutionary Crimes Act. The actual name of this Rowlatt Act is Anarchical revolutionary. So this act had a number of very stringent act had numerous stringent provisions, and these provisions uh, had the potential. Uh, uh, the point is, the Rowlatt Act, the Anarchical and Revolutionary Crimes Act, had numerous stringent provisions, and if these provisions are implemented, there is a potential. Uh, um, uh, they became a challenge. These provisions of this act, in a way, became a challenge to the human right. So let us understand what these provisions are. So the point is, why is this act passed in 1919? The Rowlatt Act 1919, was passed in the backdrop of growing national sentiment. Point is, by 1919, nationalism was growing in India. This act, the Rowlatt Act 1919, was passed with a view to check the growing sentiment of nationalism in India. View to check nationalism with a view to check the growing sentiment of India. Act was passed. So basically, many of the provisions of this act became threat to the human rights. It became a challenge, a threat to the human rights. Point. So let us understand what the provisions of this act are. One, under the provisions of this act, the police were given the authority to search any place and arrest any individual without a warrant. So this is a drastic provision. The drastic power that was given to the police under provisions. So one provision says that under the provisions of the Rowlatt Act, the police were given the authority to check any premises or any place and also arrest any individual without a warrant. Without a warrant. So without arrest warrant, the British were given the authority to arrest any individual without any basis. So this was one very stringent provision included in the Rowlatt Act. Second, this is even more dangerous. The second provision. So arrested persons can be kept in the police custody. Second provision says that the arrested persons could be kept in the police custody without a trial for an indefinite period. Without a trial for an indefinite means that the arrested persons need not be produced before the court of law. They can be kept in the custody for an indefinite period without any trial. This is even more problematic provision. One, the police were given the right to arrest. The police were given the authority to arrest any individual without any warrant. Second, such arrested individuals could be kept in the police custody without any trial for an means that they did not be the arrested individuals could not be need not be produced before the judge. They need not be uh, they did not be taken for a trial. They could be kept police custody for an indefinite. So these were the two provisions of this act became very problematic. So immediately the Congress party and Gandhiji began to criticize the Rowlatt Act. Both the Congress party and Gandhiji demanded the British government to immediately repeal the Rowlatt Act. So, what was the stand taken by Gandhiji and Congress Party? In simple terms, Gandhiji and Congress Party demanded the British that is, the British government, to immediately repeal the act, repeal the Rowlatt Act. What was the response of the British government? So, the British government um, did not respond to the demands of the Congress. Basically, the British government did not respond to the demands of the Congress Party and Gandhi. That became reason number one for Congress party to launch the non-cooperation movement. That became reason number one for the Congress party to launch the non-cooperation. So we are now discussing why the non-cooperation movement started. The reason number one. Second reason is a horrific incident called Jallianwala Bagh tragedy. Second reason for the Congress party to launch the non-cooperation movement was a horrific incident called uh, Jallianwala Bagh tragedy. So this Jallianwala is an open vacant land right in front of a golden temple in Amritsar. We have a golden temple in Amritsar. So right in front of the temple, there used to be there is still a vacant place called Jallianwala Bagh. So on 13th April, date is also important. On 13th April 1919, so large crowd had gathered at the Jallianwala Bagh. So a large number of people assembled in the Bagh. So on that day, that is on 13th April 1919, the British police opened fire on a crowd that had gathered the Jallianwala Bagh. The point is, on 13th April 1919, the British police opened fire on the crowd gathered at the Jallianwala. Basically, the police opened indiscriminate firing on the people who had gathered the Jallianwala Bagh, which is basically an open site right in front of Golden Temple in Amritsar. So, in this firing, estimated 1,000 Indians lost their lives. An estimated 1,000 Indians lost. So some sources even suggest that close to 2,000 people died. It is a unfortunate, horrifying incident. But some other sources suggest that 1,000 even 1,000 is a small number. Even one life is very precious, but it is a brutal British repression. Almost not less than 1,000 people lost their lives. This particular unfortunate. Now let us understand what was the need for the British to open fire. Why did the British open fire? Why did the people assemble in the Jallianwala Bagh? Let us understand those. Basically, uh, 3 days prior to this incident, 3 days prior to the Jallianwala Bagh tragedy, that is on 10th of April 1919, on 10th of April 1919, two prominent leaders of Punjab were arrested by the British under the provisions of Rowlatt Act. So, two prominent Congress leaders of Punjab were arrested by the British under the provisions of the Rowlatt Act. One was Satyapal, the other is Saifuddin Kichlu. So, these two happened to be the prominent Congress leaders. Both of them were arrested under the provisions of the Rowlatt Act by the British. And therefore, the Congress party gave a call for a protest meeting on 13th April 1990. So basically, to protest the arrest of the Congress leaders, also to protest uh, against the Rowlatt Act, also to protest the arrest of the Congress leaders. The Congress party gave a call for a protest meeting to be held on 13th April. And the Congress party decided to organize a protest meeting at the Jallianwala Bagh. So on 13th April, the Congress party organized a protest meeting at Jallianwala Bagh. That's the point. So the point is the Lieutenant Governor of Punjab back in those days was one Mr. Michael O. Dwyer. the Lieutenant Governor of Punjab, British Lieutenant Governor of Punjab back in those Michael O'Dwyer. Immediately, Michael O'Dwyer, governor, refused to give permission to the Congress party to organize the meeting. The Congress party decided to organize the protest meeting on 13th April 19, but the British governor, that is a lieutenant governor by name Michael O'Dwyer, refused to give permission to the Congress party to organize the meeting. In fact, Michael O'Dwyer instead imposed martial law in the city of Amritsar. Basically, Michael O'Dwyer not only refused to give permission to the Congress party to organize the meeting, instead, he went a step ahead and imposed martial law. Martial law is basically military law. So, if martial law is imposed, people uh, shall not assemble in groups. Basically, whenever martial law is imposed, uh, people shall not assemble in groups, in large groups. So, this was the decision taken by Michael O'Dwyer. But the point is, the Congress party defied the martial law. Congress party Congress party defied the martial law. Congress party, despite uh, not given given permission by the lieutenant governor to organize the meeting, the Congress party went ahead and organized the protest meeting on 13th April. And the Congress party organized this meeting at the very same place, that is at Jallianwala Bagh. This is what happened. Got the point. But the point is, the same day, 13th April 1919, also happened to be a Baisakhi day. Same day, 13th April 1919, also happens to be a Baisakhi. Baisakhi is Punjabi New Year. Got the point. So therefore, number of devotees started. The point is, uh, number of 13th April 1919 happened to be a Baisakhi day. And therefore, number of devotees started visiting the Golden Temple, and after visiting the Golden Temple, just out of curiosity, people started also attending protest meeting organized by the Congress Party, Jallianwala Bagh. So the point is, 13th April also happened to be festival day. Therefore, people started visiting the temple, the Golden Temple at Amritsar. After completing their visit to the temple, just out of curiosity, these people, the devotees, started attending the meeting that was going on in the Jallianwala Bagh. That's the point. So the point is, immediately the army was called in to the Jallianwala Bagh. This army unit was headed by an officer by name Brigadier Dyer. So do not get confused. The Lieutenant Governor of Punjab was Dwyer, Michael O'Dwyer, whereas the military was called in to uh, the site of Jallianwala Bagh, and this military unit was headed by one Mr. Brigadier Dyer, DYER. Names pronunciation is almost the same, but both are two different. So this Brigadier Dyer ordered his troops to open fire on the crowd that had gathered at the Jallianwala Bagh. The point is, thousands of people were assembled in Jallianwala Bagh. People did not go to the Jallianwala Bagh merely to protest uh, the Rowlatt, against the Rowlatt Act. People who had in fact visited the temple just out of curiosity started visiting the Jallianwala Bagh ground, open place. The point, just out of curiosity, because the meeting was being carried out by the Congress party. So therefore, people started just out of curiosity. And there were thousands of people gathered in the Jallianwala Bagh. So the point is, Brigadier Dyer uh, uh, ordered his troops to open fire on the people who had gathered. and in this firing, more than 1,000 Indians. So this was undoubtedly one of the most tragic incidents taken place in India during the British time. Undoubtedly, one of the tragic incidents taken in India during the British times. So naturally, the point is there was a lot of criticism against the British after this tragedy. So there was a lot of criticism against uh, after this tragedy. So under the growing uh, pressure, under the mounting criticism, under great pressure, the British government appointed a committee led by one Mr. Hunter to look into the circumstances leading to the Jallianwala Bagh tragedy. So basically, under a growing pressure, under mounting pressure, the British government called Hunter Committee to investigate the circumstances leading to the Jallianwala Bagh tragedy. Appointed. This committee, the Hunter Committee, only took the technical aspects into consideration and gave clean chit, clean chit to both the Lieutenant Governor as well as the Brigadier. Basically, the Hunter Committee did not find fault with the actions of Lieutenant Governor nor that of the Brigadier. So the point is the Rowlatt Act, the Jallianwala Bagh tragedy, the Jallianwala Bagh tragedy, the Jallianwala Bagh incident, and also the report of the Hunter Committee uh, became the reason, became another reason for the Congress party to launch the non-cooperation movement. So we are now discussing why did the Congress party launch non-cooperation. Basically, the Jallianwala Bagh incident and also the report of the Hunter Committee gave a clean chit to the Lieutenant Governor and Brigadier became another reason for the Congress party to launch the non-cooperation point. So that's about the second important. The third important incident is an act passed by the British government called the Government of India Act 19, the Government of India Act 1990. Point. So this act was passed in the backdrop of August Declaration 1917. So the point is, the British government passed an act called the Government of India Act 1917. The government passed this act as a follow-up to a declaration, to an announcement called August Declaration. So basically, the August Declaration was made by senior British officer by name uh, Edwin Montagu. Edwin Montagu. So this declaration, the August Declaration, was basically an announcement. Declaration was basically an announcement by British officer called Edwin Montagu. This Edwin Montagu was basically Secretary of State for India. Edwin Montagu was basically the Secretary of State for India. So, in simple terms, this Secretary of State was a minister in charge of India's, like how we have Home Minister, Foreign Minister, Defense Minister. Edwin Montagu was a minister who was appointed to look after India, because India was important colony of the, to specifically look after India's issues or issues related to India. The British government appointed a minister named Edwin Montagu, and he was the minister in 19. He made an announcement, and this announcement is popularly called as August, because this announcement was made in the month of August 1970. The point. So, in this declaration, Edwin Montagu promised self-rule to the Indian. Self-rule is not complete independence. Self-rule is, say, semi-independence. So, for the time being, to understand, self-rule is not complete. hence self-rule is semi-independent. So basically, in 1917 itself, the British government promised self-rule to the India. And this announcement was made by senior British officer. Basically, he was a minister named Edwin Montagu. So the point is, as a follow-up to this declaration, as a follow-up to the announcement, the British government passed an act called the Government of India Act 1919. So the point is, the Indians had a lot of expectations after the August 19. Indians were hoping that the British would grant self-rule to Indians. Point is, after the August Declaration 19, the Indians were hopeful that the British would grant rule to Indians. And when the British passed the Government of Act 1990, the provisions of this act uh, could not meet the expectations of the provisions of the Government of Act failed to live up to the expectations of the Indians. It failed to live up to the expectations of the Congress Party. Because the Indians in Congress Party, they felt that they were hopeful that the British would give self-rule to Indians, but uh, the British came up with a system uh, under the Government of India Act 19, which clearly was not to the liking of the Indians and the Congress Party. So let us understand some important provisions of the Government of India Act 19. So under this system, under the Government of India Act 1919, the British introduced a system came to be referred to as a diarchy system. Okay. So the point is, under the Government of India Act 19, the British government used diarchy system. This diarchy system uh, was not to the liking of the Congress Party. The Congress Party was not happy with the diarchy system. Congress Party demanded the government abolish the diarchy system, introduce a system that grants self-rule to the Indians in its true sense. The whole point is the British government itself promised self-rule to Indians way back in 1970. And when the British passed this act in 1919, Indians were hopeful that the British would indeed give self-rule to Indians. But that was not to be the case. Instead of complete self-rule, the British introduced a system called diarchy system under the Government of India Act 1919. And this diarchy system, it failed to live up to the expected party. Really felt bad. Therefore, it became this Government of India Act 1919 became another reason for the party to launch the non-cooperation movement. Because the Congress Party was hopeful that the British would indulge, but that was not to be the case. As what the British had introduced under the Government of was not self-rule in its true sense. What instead they have introduced was a system called diarchy system. So diarchy means two sets of government. Basically, diarchy means two sets of government, two parallel government were introduced. Some other class can go ahead detail diarchy, but for the time being, that the diarchy system used by the British was definitely not to the liking. So this Government of India Act 1919 became another important reason for the Congress Party to launch the non-cooperation movement. That's the point. So note is this diarchy was introduced only at the provincial level, not at the central level. So this diarchy system was introduced under the Government of India Act 1919 only at the provincial level and not at the central level. Come to the fourth reason. Fourth reason for the Congress party to start the non-cooperation is an issue called Khilafat issue. Khilafat issue. So basically, this Khilafat movement was started in India to let me repeat. The fourth reason for the Congress party to launch the non-cooperation movement is an issue called Khilafat issue. So this Khilafat issue was it came into existence. Issue broke out in 1990. So this Khilafat movement, will understand what Khilafat movement is. But this Khilafat movement was started in India by two brothers, namely Muhammad Ali Jawhar and Shaukat Ali. The Khilafat movement was started in India by two, Muhammad Ali Jawhar and Shaukat Ali Jawhar. The point. So before we understand what this Khilafat movement is, before we understand why this movement started, let us understand few details related to World War One. You all might be knowing that World War One was fought between 19 to 9, the time period of World War One. So during this World War One, the countries of the world were divided into two camps. One is we have the Allied camp, Allied camp, and second we have is the Central Powers. So basically, the countries of the world were divided into camps during World War One. Allied countries, second is the Central Powers. Allied countries include, say, Britain, France, Japan, at a point, etc., etc. All these were part of the Allied camp. Britain, France, Japan, Italy also was a part of the Allied camp. Uh, the World War One. The Central Powers, on the other hand, mostly includes Germany. It also includes the Ottoman Empire, etc. Ottomans were a powerful empire during the medieval period. So the Ottomans, uh, the center of the Ottoman power, the center of Ottoman Empire, capital of this Ottoman Empire was Constantinople. Capital of this Ottoman Empire was Constantinople, which is present day Istanbul. So basically, the Ottomans was a very powerful empire during the travel period. So the Ottoman Empire uh, was based in Istanbul. Point. Capital of the Ottoman Empire was Constantinople, but this Ottoman Empire was also spread in uh, West Asia. For example, the Ottoman Empire was spread in Palestine, Jordan, Syria, Iraq. At a point. So even the northern part of Africa was under the control of the Ottomans. So basically, the Ottomans, they ruled from Constantinople, but they had under their control a large part of Asia, which includes, say, uh, parts of Arabian Peninsula. It also had Turkey under its control, the present day Turkey, Jordan, Syria, Palestine, whole of northern part of Africa. All these territories were under the control of the Ottomans. So the point is, during World War One, the world countries were divided into two camps. The Allied camp, countries of Allied camp, Britain, France, Japan, Italy, etc. The other group came to be referred to as central powers. Chief powers of the central powers are the chief countries of the central powers are one is Germany, other is the Ottoman. What was the outcome of World War One? In World War One, the central powers were defeated. Germany was defeated. Ottomans were defeated. Thereafterwards, uh, Britain occupied the Ottoman Empire. So the Britain, after the defeat of Central Powers in World War One, Britain occupied the Ottoman Empire. It split the Ottoman Empire into various parts and declared as independent kingdoms, independent countries. Let me repeat. This big was Ottoman Empire. Britain, after World War One, occupied the whole of Ottoman Empire, divided into various parts, and declared as independent country. So basically, Britain declared Turkey as one, Jordan as another independent, Syria as one, Iraq as another independent, Palestine as another. So basically, all of these territories were under the control of the Ottomans till 1990. The uh, Britain occupied whole of Ottoman Empire. It split Ottoman Empire into parts and declared each of these parts of the Ottoman Empire as independent. Point is, this decision of Britain to split up the Ottoman Empire was not to the liking of Indian Muslims. This decision of Britain to split up the Ottoman Empire into parts was not to the liking of Indian Muslims. This was because the ruler of the Ottoman Empire, the king of the Ottoman Empire, was also looked up to by the Muslims across the world as a Khalifa. Point is, the Muslims across the world looked up to the ruler of the Ottoman Empire also as a Khalifa. Khalifa, Khalifa, in simple terms, refers to the head of the Islamic world. Khalifa, in simple terms, refers to the head of the Islamic world. So, the ruler of the Ottoman Empire was the political head of the Ottoman, oh, the king of the Ottoman Empire essentially performed two functions. One is the political function, that is, he was the head of the Ottoman Empire, the political head of the Ottoman Empire. The, the king of the Ottoman Empire also performed the second function, that is, he was looked up to as the head of the Muslims living across the world. Was basically looked up to by the Muslims as their head. Uh, the point is, the ruler of Ottoman Empire was looked up to as Khalifa. Khalifa, it means the head of the Islamic world. You can compare Khalifa to that of Pope. Compare Khalifa to that of Pope. Pope, basically the head of the Christian world. Similarly, Khalifa was looked up to as the head of the Muslim. Khalifa also had was not just the head of the Muslim world. Khalifa was also, that is, the Ottoman ruler was also the political head of the territory of his country. So basically, he had a dual role to perform. The point which I'm trying to convey. So the whole point which I'm trying to convey is uh, Britain, after the end of World War One, occupied the Ottoman Empire. It split up Ottoman Empire into various parts and started declaring each of these parts as independent kingdoms, independent countries. And this decision of Britain to split up the Ottoman Empire was not to the liking of Muslims of India, because they looked up to the Khalifa, they looked up to the ruler of the Ottoman Empire as the defender of Islam. The Muslims of India looked up to the ruler of the Ottoman Empire as a symbol of Muslim unity. So therefore, they started protesting against the British decision to split up the Ottoman Empire into so many parts. Let me repeat. What is this Khilafat issue? Basically, in 1919, two Indian Muslims started a movement called Khilafat movement. This movement was started by Muhammad and Shaukat Ali. So this movement was started to put pressure on the British not to go ahead with splitting up of the Ottoman Empire. Basically, this movement was started with the demand of this movement was started by both of these brothers to demand the British that it should not be splitting up the Ottoman Empire. That was the objective. Because I already told you the ruler of the Ottoman world, the ruler of the Ottoman Empire was looked up to by the Muslims as a symbol of Muslim unity. He was looked up to by the Muslims across the world, the defender of Islam. Point. So therefore, the Indian Muslims started protesting against this British decision to split up the Ottoman Empire. So once the Khilafat movement was started by Muhammad Ali Jawhar and Ashok Jawhar, immediately the Congress party also declared its full support to the movement. The Congress party also declared its full support to the movement, and particularly it was Gandhiji who declared his full support to the Khilafat movement. Basically, this Khilafat issue had absolutely to do with India, but still Gandhiji went ahead and declared his full support to the Khilafat issue. He did this only with the intention of bringing Muslims into the fold of the national movement. Why did Gandhiji give support to the Khilafat issue? Did this with the intention of bringing Muslims into the fold of the nation to further strengthen, to unify all sections of Indian society to fight against the British. Gandhiji resorted to this. In fact, the point is, in 1919, the Khilafat leaders also conduct conference called All India Khilafat Conference. All India Khilafat Conference was conducted in 1919 at Delhi. Basically, this conference was conducted to put pressure on the British not to go ahead with setting up of the Ottoman Empire. The point is, in this conference, the point is Gandhiji was elected as the participants of this meeting happened to be Muslims, but Gandhiji was elected as the president of. So Gandhiji declared his full support to the Khilafat issue, though the issue had nothing to do with India, because he wanted the Muslims to be drawn into the fold of the movement. With that objective in mind, Gandhi party support to the Khilafat issue. So basically, there are four reasons why the non-cooperation movement started. One is the Rowlatt Act. Second is the Jallianwala Bagh tragedy. Third is what we have called the Government of Act. Fourth reason, the Khilafat issue. So as a result of both of these, as a result of all factors, Congress Party launched the non-cooperation movement in 19. Happened to be first mass movement carried out by the party at the leadership. So these are the four reasons to remember all the four reasons. So that's all for today. But in case if you have any doubts, you may raise questions. Any doubts? Anyone?